After the fight at the inn, I was able to leave the compound much more often. I suppose after what I'd done, Hijikata thought I'd earned a little more trust. I didn't feel like I'd done anything that extraordinary, but I wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth. On this particular day, I was out on patrol with Harada in the 10th Division. Excuse me, Harada. The Shinsengumi is out patrolling day and night, right? But what exactly is it that you do? Most of the men in the Shinsengumi were intimidating, death-dealing titans, but Harada was a rare exception, warm and friendly. Not during his route, though. He ain't that warm and friendly.
まあ、ピンからキリまで大小様々だな。辻切りや追いはぎはもちろん、食い逃げも捕まえるし、喧嘩も止める。
You sound like the police. People who don't pay for their food? People would do such a thing?
商家を脅して金を奪おうとする奴らも、俺ら新選組が取り締まってるよ。
It wasn't really the answer I'd expected. Most of the stuff they did wasn't nearly as dramatic as I thought. As I thought back, I remember how excited they'd all been when they were preparing for the raid on the Okita Inn. Now I understood why. What they'd done at the inn was a good deal more intense than your day-to-day work. A little further down the road, a couple of men in Shinsengumi blues were waving at us. Nagakura! Our separate rounds had brought us to the same spot.
Yo! 親父さんの情報、なんか手に入ったか?
I shook my head. No, nothing today.
なくらいがすんなって。今日がダメでも明日がある。
Yeah, you're right. I'll find him eventually. There was something contagious about his optimism.
ねえ、シンパシー。そっちはどうだ？何か異常でもあったか？
いや、なんも。けど、やっぱり町人たちの様子が世話しねえな。
I had noticed it before, but he was right. They were acting strange, almost nervous. Yeah, it looks like they're getting ready to move. Harada nodded.
戦火に巻き込まれまいと、今日から避難し始めてるってことか。
What? War? There wasn't a war? Was there?
長州の奴らが今日に集まってきてんだよ。その関係で俺らも警戒強化中ってわけだ。
池田屋の件で長州を怒らせちまったからな。仲間から犠牲が出れば黙ってられないだろう。
Were the Chosu going to try something again? The Shinsengumi were doing their best to keep order in Kyoto. In fact, they'd saved the city from the rebellious plans of the Chosu once before with their victory at Okita Inn. But even after all they'd done, the people of Kyoto looked at the Shinsengumi with fear and distrust, and plenty of them still sided with the Chosu. The Shinsengumi were better regarded now than they had been before Ikeda, but even so. I told Nakakura as much, but he only laughed.
今日の人間は爆嫌いだから仕方ねって。
どちらにせよ、俺たちは俺たちの仕事をする。長州の連中が今日に来ても追い返すだけさ。
They accepted your situation and never complained. I had a good deal of respect for Harada and Nagakura.
対長州か。もしかすると近いうちに上から出動命令が出るかもしれねえな。
For the Shinsengumi, the top men at Aizu Domain. It's that serious, huh? Harada gave a bark of laughter and nodded.
そんな機会めったにないだろうな。せっかくだからお前も出てみるか？
Will Okita be there? What? Join? But I'm doing Okita's route. Did he mean for me to join the Setsungumi and march to war with them? I couldn't imagine joining them would be as simple as saying yes, please. Besides, it seemed rather inappropriate for me to ask to participate just so that I might satisfy my curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. Still, I did want very much to be helpful in some way. Could I perhaps do something like what I'd done at the Okita Inn? Even if I could, though, I was terribly frightened of being anywhere near a battle. On the other hand, the men who'd been injured at Ikeda were still out of commission. I'm gonna stay behind because I don't think Okita's gonna be there and I'm trying to do his route, so I'll stay behind. You leave me out of this. The last thing I wanted was to be in the way, especially if Okita wasn't gonna be there. Trying to get those relationship points. Besides, how could I justify participating when I wasn't even a true member of the Shinsengumi? A few days passed. Your medicine's ready. The tray I was carrying held medicine and some hot sake. The medicine was Ashita medicinal powder, which was manufactured by Hijikata's family. Oh, it's a good thing I stayed then, because this is where Okita's at, so I get to take care of Okita. It's a good thing I stayed. Okita needs me. Sanan's eyebrows rose at the mention of his name.
Oh yeah, 私も飲むんですか。私の傷はもう塞がっていますよ。
試してみましょうよ、三男さん。この薬って何にでも効くらしいですから。
Sanan rolled his eyes but reached over to take his portion of medicine and sake. Wait, what, am I misunderstanding? Are they taking medicine and sake together? You're not supposed to be mixing medicine with alcohol. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the situation, but you're not supposed to mix those things together. I don't know. Maybe things were different back then. I don't know. Maybe I misread something. He had been telling the truth, though. His injuries had healed, at least as much as they were going to, but his arm still refused to work properly. It was slowly becoming clear that it would never work properly again.
石田三役は熱燗で飲むのが粋だよな。羨ましいぞお前ら。
羨ましいなら飲めばいいじゃん。新八さんだって本当は怪我人だろ。
Nagakura had been injured at the Ikeda Inn, but he'd recently declared that he was completely healed despite the fact that his wound still looked rather painful. Nonetheless, he continued his normal training and even went on his rounds every day. I'd heard he had convinced Hijikata that his wounds weren't as bad as Okita's or Hesuke's.
しかし東堂君と沖田君が怪我して帰ってくるとかな。
あれは池田屋が暗かったから、普段の戦いなら遅れを取らないって。横合いから急に殴られたんだよ。おかげで蜂金なんて真っ二つだしさ。
Excuses, excuses, Hesuke.
拳で蜂金を割るか。随分と豪気な奴がいるもんだ。
I mean, it is. Even if he could see the fist coming, like, I don't think that would have helped him. He still would have lost that fight. Hesuke muttered something angry and unpleasant under his breath, but Harada just laughed because he was right. There was really nothing he could do in that situation. He was gonna lose even if there was more light. Sorry, Hesuke. Yeah, yep. He got away. It wasn't that he let us go. It was that he got away. Yep, that's exactly what happened. Okita totally had the upper hand, and then dude was like, "Oh no," and ran away. Yep. Okita only smiled quietly as Nagakura gestured towards him.
次があれば勝つのは僕ですから。
Okita, I don't think you understand how strong that man was, but okay, it won't happen again, I guess. Before long, they were all sharing their stories of what had happened at the Ikeda Inn, with their exploits increasing as the sake decreased. Only Saito remained silent. Is there something bothering you? I kept my voice low, so as to not interrupt any of the other men in your conversations.
宗次らを負傷させるほどの実力者があの夜池田屋にいた理由を考えていた。長州のものではないと言ったそうだが、池田屋も人払いはしていたはずだ。
Oh. I hadn't thought about it before, but he was right. If the Chosu were having a secret meeting, then of course they would have had someone watching who came and went.
池田屋の人間と老師たちの目を盗み、何らかの目的で侵入したのだろう。
Was he suggesting that perhaps they infiltrated the inn long before the Shetsengumi arrived?
今確実にわかるのは、奴らが相当の実力者だということだけだ。
Also, one of the men was very good looking. I noticed that you didn't mention that, so I'm going to mention it for you, Saito. The dude that attacked Okita, he was, like, you should have seen him. He was awesome. No sooner had Saito finished speaking than the door slid open and Condo appeared.
会津藩から伝令が届いた。
All conversation immediately ceased and all eyes turned towards Condo.
長州の襲撃に備え、我ら新選組も出陣するよう仰せだ。
A cheer went up from everyone present.
ついに来たか。待ちかねたぜ。
残念だったな、平助。怪我人はさすがに不参加だろう。
でもせっかくの晴れ舞台じゃん。
He turned to Hijikata, clearly hoping that the commander might give him special leave to go.
不参加に決まってんだろう。おとなしく屯所の守備につきやがれ。
His tone was as cold and final as a steel door slamming shut.
土方さん、鬼、この鬼副長。
Hijikata is such a dad. No, young man, you will not be marching into battle.
なんだ、褒めてんのか。すまきにされたくなきゃ黙ってろ。
Hesuke talking back, so Hijikata just starting to spank him. Like, this is what's happening here. Hijikata is he's such a dad. He's the father of the Shinsengumi. Hesuke's mouth snapped shut. I didn't think Hijikata would actually stab one of his own men, but neither did I think he would go easy on any of them, even if they were injured. Like, don't talk back to him, I guess.
怪我人は足手まといなんですよ。素直に屯所で待機しましょう。
Sana's bitter smile had no trace of warmth. Hesuke only sighed.
僕も仕方ないから諦めますよ。参加したいけど本調子じゃないし。
Don't worry, Okita, I'll take good care of you. He did his best to sound nonchalant, but there was no hiding the bitter disappointment beneath his words. I assume I'll be staying here as well? Condo nodded.
ああ、平助と宗司がダダをこねんよ。見張っておいてくれ。
He let out a short laugh and several of the men grinned. Before long, the Shetsengumi had left for the front, leaving only a handful of soldiers in the silent compound. If I leave my room now, then I shouldn't get in trouble. After all, it seemed awfully unlikely that I would bump into one of the rank-and-file soldiers. But even if I did leave, where would I go? Oh, right! Condo had asked me to keep an eye on Okita and Hesuke. I think Okita was in the courtyard. As everyone was leaving the common room, he'd mentioned that he wanted to go to get some fresh air. To be honest, I was a little concerned for him. He was still recovering, and being out in the cold air wasn't going to do him any favors in that regard. Still, that left Hesuke and Sanin. Maybe they're still in the common room. Hesuke had seemed particularly frustrated at being forced to stay behind, and Sanin had been even colder and more distant lately. I was worried for Okita, of course, but I felt there was something deeper affecting Hesuke and Sanin, but that's their problem because I'm not doing their route. After a few more minutes of thought, I'd made up my mind. I'll go see how they're doing. Inner courtyard. For a midsummer afternoon, the air was surprisingly cool, making the courtyard a pleasant place to sit. Okita had said he was coming here, so... Ah! He was sitting off in a corner in the shade, gazing up at the summer sky. I turned to look as well. It was a brilliant blue, and a distant breeze was pushing a few white wisps of cloud from one end to the other. How long had it been since I'd last looked up at the sky? Far too long, I thought as I stretched out my arms as far as I could, soaking in the sunshine and cool, clean air. Then at last, I turned back to where Okita was sitting, or rather where he had been sitting. While I'd been enjoying the summer sky, he stood and approached. Now he's right in front of me. My body stiffened and I felt my eyes widen. He raised a quizzical eyebrow.
僕のことなら心配しなくていいよ。豚書を脱走する予定とか別にないから。
That's not what I'm worried about. True, he didn't seem like he was desperate to leave and join the fight like Hesuke had been.
いいけどね。でもそれ、違う心配はしてたってこと？
His mouth twisted into a small smile. I decided to tell him, "You're still not in the best condition. It isn't good for you to be out in the cold for too long. So I brought you a jacket." No, I didn't. He blinked, as if that hadn't been quite what he had expected.
心配してくれてたんだ。ありがとう。風に当たるのはほどほどにして部屋に戻るよ。
Okita had always seemed a little mean. Until that moment, I would never have thought I'd hear him thank me for worrying about him. I wasn't sure what to say. Both of us appeared to have run out of things to say, and silence fell across the courtyard. I didn't want to scold him and then simply leave for my room, but... There had to be something I could say. Something thoughtful? How so? How about that weather? Cold, ain't it? I hope your injuries heal soon. Not that. Okita laid his hand on his chest absently and looked away from me across the courtyard at nothing.
刀傷じゃないしね。治るのは早いと思う。だから僕は大丈夫なんだけど。
He was right, and that should have given him cause for joy, but his face didn't change. He blinked and looked back down at me. Are you thinking about Sanan? He'd made a point to say although he'd left it unsaid, I would see he was worrying about the man we both knew wouldn't be fine. Like, he was not going to be able to sword fight anymore. Sanan's arm wasn't going to heal, at least not completely. It would never again hold a sword. Okita said nothing, he only cocked his head and smiled. Poor Sanan. I felt myself blushing. Was I wrong? He only grinned wider and shook his head.
君ってちょっと変だよね。
You're a weird one. Well, excuse me for being weird then. Oh, I just own it. Yes, I am weird. Excuse me. I must have looked rather upset, but he'd called me weird for no reason. Whatever I looked like, he seemed to find it amusing because he burst out laughing.
本当に変だよ。僕のことなんて
You
心
can call me
配する
weird
必
again?
要ないの
Okay.
にさ。怪我をしたのは僕の自業自得なんだから。
What? No, you shouldn't blame yourself. Okita hadn't done anything wrong except lose the fight against someone who was clearly stronger than him and better looking. He was following orders and doing the best he could. I didn't see how he could say what had happened was his fault. When I looked up, his smile was gone, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything more. He glanced down at me and turned to look up at the sky.
今日の空、綺麗だよね。
Yes. Yep, that's a beautiful sky. The midsummer sun shone down on us, giving our skin a breath of warmth in the cool air. White clouds danced across the blue expanse, flying in front of a wind we couldn't feel. Ugh. Where were the men who'd marched off earlier now? I wondered. The Chosu extremists attempted I can't read. The Chosu extremists attempted attack on the imperial estate, eventually come to be known as the Hamaguri Rebellion. Although the Shinsengumi were called to action, their efforts were stymied, I don't know, and they found little in the way of glory. Communication with their superiors had been poor at best, and they'd spend much of the battle waiting with the reserves. When the Shinsengumi did finally enter the battle, they found several strange opponents awaiting them. Okay, Kazuma. I love him. I love him. Chikage Kazuma, the man who defeated Okita at the Ikeda Inn, and he looked good doing it. Claimed to be from the Satsuma domain during the encounter with Hijikata. Oh my goodness. Kyu Amagiri. He don't look as good, whatever. The man who had shattered Hesuke's head guard at Ikeda also claimed membership in the Satsuma, whatever. Okay, he looked kind of good. Not as good as Shikage, but he do look kind of good. Okay, they had also met Kyo Shiranui, who'd fought alongside men from Chosu. Whoever they were, it was clear that Chikage looked the best out of all three of them. Whoever they were, it was clear that they were not allies of the Shinsengumi. Indeed, it seemed they could easily become some of its greatest enemies. But I could care less, because Chikage is awesome. If they were to meet in open battle, the casualties would be severe. By the time the battle was over, the commanders of the Chosu attack had been killed in the fighting or taking their own lives. There were some soldiers, however, who escaped, setting Kyoto ablaze as they fled. By some terrible misfortune, the wind that day blew from the north and fanned the flames, reducing the southern end of the imperial estate to ash. As a result of the Chosu attack, many imperial nationalists were executed. After everything had been sorted out, the Shinsengumi were at last given permission to patrol outside Kyoto from Osaka to Hyogo. No sooner had they been given permission from that, they set to work rounding up unruly Ronin and defending the public good. With the Hamaguri rebellion over, the Chosu were branded as traitors for attacking the estate. From then on, they were acknowledged enemies of the court. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of that information went, oh, chapter 2. Oh my goodness, it's Chikage again. Oh my goodness. Okay. A lot of the information went in one ear and out the other because I saw Chikage and I lost my friggin' mind. Like, I'm trying to pay attention to what's happening, but I saw Chikage and I just don't care anymore. I saw Chikage. I saw my favorite character. He is my favorite Hakuoki character. After breakfast one day, I found myself on still thinking about Chikage. Like, focus. I gotta focus. Gotta stop fangirling, man. Okay.